Hello all, welcome to another edition of the Citizen NFL Podcast. I am Justin Ritzel, your host, and I'm joined as always on a very snowy Thursday afternoon in Auburn.
Indeed.
By Robert Harding and Chris Sciria. Gentlemen, did you get your winter boots? Because I haven't.
Happy New Year to you, Ritz.
Yeah, same to you.
Chris, I'll think about giving you a good greeting later on.
Do you guys have any New Year's resolutions as far as outlandish takes, or are we going to leave that in 2017?
My New Year's resolution is to reach the pinnacle of sound effects like our friend Mr. Sciria here.
You got sound effects right there, man. He's got a bowl of Captain Crunch berries.
That's right.
All he's got to do is just sink that spoon in, and we've got a sound effect right there. So
that's right.
Well, he would have brought a fork, but he saved that for the Dolphins season.
Oh, man.
Hey, I see your team sitting home in January too, pal.
Stick a fork
Easy
in
there.
Well, hey, when you make the playoffs 8 straight years, you're due.
Yeah, you give me Aaron Rodgers,
you can take a break.
Playoffs, yeah. Look at Liz, first playoff appearance since the Clinton administration. Listen to him run his mouth.
Yeah, I wrote.
I haven't had to say anything yet.
Oh, you're
he
saying
said the
stuff.
stick of the fork.
Yeah, but you're just like piling on, man.
Did a little research for my column that I put out yesterday about the Bills making the playoffs, and
It was a very good column, by the way.
Appreciate it. The number one song in America on the Billboard charts the last time the Bills played a playoff game was a collaboration between Santana and Rob Thomas.
Legendary song.
A nice jam known as Smooth.
Legendary song. One of the great hits featured on MTV's famous TV show, Total Request Live, otherwise known as TRL. But not as famous as Remote Control. Am I right, Chris?
You know what I love about the podcast? There's no GIFs. Can't do them.
Can't do them. Can't live with them. Can't live without them.
You want me to talk about the Bills?
Let's start with Robert. Let's give him his moment in the sun.
Yeah.
Since it'll be a week-long thing until the Bills get wiped out on Sunday.
Whoa.
All right, so we all know the Bills needed some help.
Indeed, yeah.
Obviously, they needed to win no matter what. They could not back into the playoffs.
You're welcome.
They needed a win and a Ravens loss, or a win and a Titans loss and a Chargers loss.
Yeah.
The Titans and the Chargers did not lose. They won. So the Bills were relying on the Ravens. Robert, I mean, on the scale of 1 to 10, before the game started, how confident were you feeling that the Bills were going to get in, with 10 being the most confident, 1 being the least confident? And then, I guess about maybe 6 o'clock on Sunday, about halftime, what was your confidence level then?
So I went from about a 2 or a 3 to a 5 or a 6. Before the, I actually thought, and I think I told my wife this, that I thought the best road in was and I think I told Chris this too, the Bengals-Ravens being division rivals, anything can happen.
Mm-hmm. He did say that.
And the Ravens did beat the Bengals earlier in the year, 20-0. So I thought, well, this is the last game. Potentially, as it turns out, it wasn't, but could have been the last game for Marvin Lewis. They were coming off a game in which they disrupted the Lions' playoff hopes with a win. So why not? Why not this team? And they came out pretty good. I was watching the ESPN Gamecast throughout while simultaneously watching the Bills-Dolphins game, and it was a nerve-wracking few hours, especially once you and I say that the confidence level rose, but the nervousness level rose too, because once you realize that it's the Bengals are leading the Ravens. The other scenario isn't going to play out. Like that's what you're relying on. And so once it happened, once the Bills beat the Dolphins, once the Bengals beat the Ravens on that play, I was more excited for that Bengals play than anything that happened in the Bills game. That was easily worth the 17-year wait. It's just great to be able to root for them in the playoffs again. It's been a while. I was in 7th grade. There's just so many things that come to mind. My dad was still alive when the Bills made the playoffs. All these things that you think about, and just how many people shed a tear, were so excited, went to the airport to greet the team. I mean, it was great. I still find myself watching some of those videos over and over, even a few days later. So it's cool. It's nice to be back here. Obviously, they're underdogs going into Sunday, but hey, at least they're in it.
So we'll get into the playoff matchups a little more in detail later, but I guess for both you guys, considering the history and all that and the fashion in which the Bills got in, is it good enough that they got in if they go ahead and lay an egg on Sunday against the Jaguars? Like, will you still look at this season ultimately as a success? Because remember, we're sitting here before Week 1 and talking about Sammy Watkins getting traded and what the hell are the Bills doing, and I guess they're gunning for one of those top picks, and they proved us and a lot of people wrong, I think. So I guess is this a successful season no matter what?
I think so. With the way that they got in, certainly they needed help, but that's the nature of football. I mean, the Chargers, if they beat the Chiefs, week 15, week 16, we're not talking about this. That's the reality. So the Bills, I think, showed certainly improvement. You look at last year. I believe they were 7-9. They flip that. They go 9-7, and they get in the playoffs. There's certainly things that they can build on. Certainly, there's areas that they need to address. As Tyrod Taylor, the quarterback going forward, he was a big reason why they got to the playoffs. So you have to think that that's leaning towards yes. But there's other things that they need to address, especially defensively. So I think they were. They certainly outperformed what many people thought. There's all these predictions out there that they would win 3 or 4 games. I think I had them winning 4 or 5 games. They win 9. So there's a lot to build on there. There's certainly some good pieces. So I think they're going in the right direction. Certainly, what the future holds for some of these other players, whether it's Tyrod, what have you, what the front office direction wants to be, remains to be seen. But I think after this year they have something to build on. 9-win season, playoff berth. Build on that instead of tanking and trying to build from the ash heap.
So, Chris, obviously, you and I are sitting here as the more frustrated fans of the three of us.
Oh.
So, I mean, we'll give you your moment here to kind of close the book on the Dolphins season. I mean, obviously, disappointing throughout, and the way it ended, you guys had your moment to ruin things for the Bills, and obviously it kind of...
Get out the bleeps, folks.
The funny thing is, realistically, I think Robert should be saying thank you to me because, the Dolphins did not try to win. They really were trying not to win that game on Sunday. I mean, first of all, they take Jay Cutler out after the first series and they put in David Fales. I mean, you're putting in a guy that realistically, going in the training camp, was your third quarterback. Before Tannehill got hurt. Okay, maybe even fourth, because they've got another kid by the name of Brandon Doughty in the practice squad. But irregardless, when you put in a guy who's never really played much in the NFL, and you put him in this game, and you go for it on, 4th and 7 at the 12-yard line, instead of kicking a field goal, I mean, it just was very frustrating to me as a Dolphins fan that even though Miami was eliminated, they're playing for pride, and to me, and you're playing a team that is trying to make the playoffs. if the Bills were eliminated, I could understand why Miami would do that. But, Buffalo was alive, and Miami could have, knocked them out of the playoff hunt. And I'm just disappointed that the Dolphins and Adam Gase did not put up much more of an effort. Now, that being said, in the second half, things did change, and Miami did have a chance to win the game at the end. They recovered another onside kick against the Bills. That's 2 this season.
Same number of losses against the Bills, too.
Twice. Boy, I'll tell you, man. He makes the playoffs once in 18 years, and listen to him run his mouth. I'll tell you. Karma, man. Just remember karma.
Hey, if they go 6-10 next year,
I think the Bills have built up karma.
I'm just saying that Miami, realistically, the first game, I don't know what it was. They came out flat, and Buffalo took it to them. I give them all the credit in the world for that one. But the game on Sunday was just Miami. They didn't give 2 hoots at the beginning, and they did have a chance at the end to win it, and fouls got picked off, and of course Landry and Drake got kicked out, which was an absolute disgrace. They could have used those 2 guys at the end of the game. I just think Miami had an I don't give a bleep attitude, and that bothers me because you should always give a bleep. There's no excuses. You're getting paid to play a game. You show up on Sunday, you play your rear end off, and you play to win. You don't go for it on 4th and 7, 4th and 8 at your own 12-yard line when you can get 3 points at the time. I'm still disgusted, still angry about it. I give the Bills credit. They earned their playoff spot. Okay, they earned it. It's not a fluke here. They earned it. Okay, but let's just say that they had a lot of help from Miami on Sunday. Okay.
Well, let me ask you this: looking at the season, there's been a lot of attention paid to Jarvis Landry, his attitude, all these players' attitude. Jay Ajayi, he was traded supposedly because of his attitude. But look at Adam Gase throughout that game, going for 4th downs and field goal position and all this other stuff. I mean, doesn't it start at the top?
Oh, absolutely. And I said Adam Gase. I mean, look, he had a look on his face, and I tweeted it to Armando Salguero, who covers the Dolphins for the Miami Herald. I said, Gase has a I don't give a bleep look on his face. What's up with that? And Salguero replied what did he reply? I'm trying to remember. But he replied to it like...
It was a good tweet.
You should see the look on my face. And it's like, I think that's what it was. You should see the look on my face. And I was just disgusted because, like I said, to me, you're being paid to win a game, whether you're in the playoff hunt or not. And I hate to channel... Herman Edwards, you play to win the game, but you do. That's why you play. You play to win. And Miami was not trying to win at the beginning of the game. It's almost like in the second half, the Bills okay, we got it wrapped up. They kind of took the foot off the gas pedal a little bit, and Miami was able to creep back in it, And it just irked me that's what it took for Miami to get back in this game. Miami should have had the attitude from the second that game started to just try to win it, and that just irks me.
So before we move on to the next topic, Robert, that was a nice segue talking about head coaches.
You're welcome.
I just want to take a moment, since we all got some things wrong this year, take a moment to not so humbly brag about 2 things. One, I did pick the scenario for the Bills to get into the playoffs, which ended up happening. You're welcome, Robert.
It's true.
And 2, I also predicted that Jeff Triplett, their official for the Dolphins-Bills game, would try his absolute best to...
What is the deal with that guy? He's always smiling. I saw him. He's smiling. He's like kind of giggling, like a 5-year-old girl. And I'm like, what the hell's up with this dude?
Well, first of all, that's not the worst part about Jeff Triplett.
I know.
He's the worst official
he
in the
is.
league.
And I'm like, what are you giggling about?
He's got a smile about something.
What's so funny? What do you got the crap-eating grin on your face for there, buddy?
I will never forget, because, me knowing about how bad of an official he is dates back as far back as I can remember knowing any of the refs. I'll never forget in 2012, obviously Green Bay was involved in the Hail Mary game with the last game with the replacement officials. And then the next week, the regulars came back, and Jeff Triplett was assigned to the Packers game the next week. They were home against the Saints. And I'll never forget the hero's welcome that all the refs received when walking out on a Lambeau Field, and you got Jeff Triplett and his crew waving to the crowd like they just won a war.
Yeah.
And I was like, this guy's going to screw up a call in this game and screw over the Packers, and his moment in the sun will be, gone in a flash. And what happened? He screwed up a call, and it almost cost Green Bay the game. So that's my lasting memory of Jeff Triplett, and every time I see him officiating any game, you're just, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when he's going to screw something up. Just be glad that ultimately the call didn't really matter.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
Obviously, the end of the regular season means the end of some coaching tenures. Before we get into the openings, there were some jobs that some coaches they kept somehow. So here's I'm gonna.
Yeah,
that's one way.
I didn't have Miami as one of my teams here, but I'm gonna list off 4 teams. Why don't you guys tell me who are you most surprised about them bringing back the head coach for next season? Cleveland with Hugh Jackson.
I don't think that's a done deal yet.
Whoa. We have to hear the whole list.
Right.
Cincinnati with Marvin Lewis.
Take it easy.
Seattle with Pete Carroll. And then Tampa Bay with Dirk Cutter. Obviously, 3 of those 4 teams had super disappointing seasons. Seattle, I think Pete Carroll coming back is that situation's a little different. But I guess, which job are you guys surprised that the guy's coming back the most?
I'd say Marvin Lewis, just because of the situation with that team, and you just wonder, like he's like a cat with 9 lives. I mean,
he's got more than 9.
He must have some compromising pictures of Mike Brown. Okay,
this guy just he hasn't won a single playoff game in his tenure. So that means they haven't reached beyond the divisional round, and he certainly deserves credit for building up the Bengals as certainly an improved franchise than they were certainly during the 90s. But, at some point, do you want your team to progress or regress? And they have been regressing over the last couple of years. And I just don't know how you keep this guy after this long. And better yet, he comes back. They give him a contract extension for a couple of years. I mean, it's wild.
It's the Bengals.
It's wild.
It's Mike. Look, Mike Brown is the cheapest owner in the NFL. Okay, I think we can state that for a fact. Scouting department.
Well, now that Rob Wilson's dead, of course he is.
Okay, come on. The Bills had an indoor facility years ago. I remember going in it back in the 90s. Okay, so give something.
Bar.
Look now he's kicking Ralph Wilson. Wow, hey, we made the playoffs. Screw you, Ralph Wilson.
Thanks for nothing, Ralph.
Thanks, Ralph. Yeah, poor Ralph, man. Poor guy. Body's barely cold in the grave, and Robert's kicking him.
It's been dead for like 4 years, right?
Yeah, three. All right, so I guess to me, Dirk Cutter. Because the Buccaneers were supposed to be the hot, like, oh, this is the team that's going to take the next step this year, and
it's true.
And they did. Well, they went 9-7 last year, I believe, and you can talk about the whole hurricane distraction. I've done it myself with the Dolphins a little bit, but regardless, this is a team that definitely took a step back. And remember, there was rumors that Gruden was going to go to the Buccaneers. There was talk that he was going to go to the Tampa Bay. That was the hot topic a couple weeks ago. So I think, yeah, on paper, if you look at it objectively, you're like, yeah, how does Marvin Lewis stay? But then it's like, oh, it's the Bengals. It's Mike Brown, the cheapest owner. He's comfortable with this guy, and the Bengals are somewhat competitive compared to what they were in the 90s when they were the Browns, basically, of the 90s, right? And but it's the truth, though. And so it's like, and then he knows if he wants to get a good coach, not a puppet, like Lewis is, he's going to have to either spend money or increase spending.
Don't you? I mean, you're spending more money if you're bringing back a tenured head coach, right? I mean,
we don't know what his contract is.
We don't know exactly.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I think there's a trade-off. I think that Lewis understands the parameters of his job, and he's accepting of that. And like I said, it's someone called it like a like an old marriage. It's like they're comfortable with each other, There's no like,
Meow.
there's no longing for greener pastures, so to speak.
I will say for Marvin Lewis, I think his head coaching career looks a lot different if Carson Palmer doesn't tear his ACL that 1 year against this, first or second round against the Steelers, because the Bengals were one of the top seeds in the AFC. So, and then they've kind of been searching for a top-notch quarterback ever since. As great as Andy Dalton was on 4th and 12,
Hey, Robert Andy Dalton is like the greatest ever.
Fit him for his
Yellow
jacket,
gold jacket there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I am shocked.
First ballot.
Absolutely shocked that neither of you said a guy who has won one game in 2 years.
Well,
it's the Browns.
Come
on.
How do you bring Hugh Jackson back?
What's he got to work with?
He didn't win a game.
What's he got to work with?
Here's my thing about Hugh Jackson, though, is that they were sending signals before the end of the season, and I don't know if they bought into the fact that this is a rebuilding year. They had a rookie quarterback coming in, and they said that no matter what happens, we're bringing Hugh Jackson back for his 3rd year. I don't get it. I mean, we remember the last time there was an 0-16 team with the Lions. I don't think that guy, was it Marinelli? I don't think he's had a head coaching job since then.
But that's a different situation, though. I mean, the Lions of 08 and the Browns of 17 are two completely different stories, because the Lions didn't go 1-15 the year before that, and the Lions didn't win like only 4 games the last 3 years or something. I mean, the Browns are. And I feel bad for their fans, but I mean, the Browns have been perpetually bad since they came back into the league in '99, with the exception of that one playoff appearance in 02. I mean, nobody expected anything of the Browns this year. I think for the Browns, for them to win 1 or 2 games, you could have called the season a success. I mean, I don't
know, Chris, because they have the number 1 pick. Obviously, Garrett missed a few games to start the season, but they had 3 first-round picks. They drafted a quarterback pretty high. Hugh Jackson is supposedly a quarterback guru, and Deshaun Kaiser was the worst quarterback in the league. And this is in a season where Brett Hundley played 9 games. So I don't see it. And even his
I don't think you hold him responsible. I think that's why they fired the GM. That's why they have a new GM.
Yeah, why does the GM get a shorter leash than the coach? You'd think that they should both be out the door.
Well, you would think that, but I just think that the Browns are just, for them, the biggest issue is talent. And I think you can't judge Hugh Jackson completely and fairly because of the talent that he has. That if he had some talent, maybe you could make the argument like, yeah, he's not the right guy for the job. It's just such a wasteland in Cleveland. And I still think he could be fired when it's all said and done. I still think that the new general manager, I think would like to bring in his own coach. So I think what's going to happen is, to be honest with you, I think Hugh Jackson basically just got a stay of execution. And I think that after next year, unless something changes dramatically, which it's impossible to see that happening now, but I think Hugh Jackson will be fired next year. I think that's what it'll be.
You know what I think another factor is and I'm sure the front office, the ownership certainly knows this, is that how the Browns are ridiculed for how they've handled past coaching situations. I think back to Rob Chudzinski, I think it was.
They fired a guy after a year or two.
After 1 year, it's not like he did poorly. I think they actually had a halfway decent season for the Browns, and they dumped him. They got rid of him, and they were ridiculed for that move. And just the way they've handled. I think Mike Pettin had maybe a season or 2, and then he was canned. And then they're in the position they are now. They haven't gotten any better, and they have committed to this rebuild, which is fine. But now they're in a position where I think for PR purposes they don't want to embarrass themselves even more than they are, and so they decide that they're going to stick with Hugh Jackson for better or for worse. I mean, I
think we all know it's for worse. It can't get any worse,
right.
But
yeah, I mean, Jackson, when he was with the Raiders, he had that one season. They went 8-8, and then they canned him. As the Raiders were prone to do for a long time, and as they did with Del Rio, really. In this situation, I mean, I think it's similar to the Bengals. How does this guy keep the job? But they were signaling all along that this was that this was the plan, that they were going to stand by him no matter how bad they fared. And they go 0-16. They say, "Yep, he's coming back." So maybe Chris is right. Maybe the GM comes in and says, "I want my own guy," and Jackson gets fired. But I mean, with the new GM, I mean, what candidates are out there? At this stage. If you wait any longer, let's say you wait until after the Super Bowl, are you going to find good candidates still out there to fill those positions? It depends on how all the rest of the chips fall, but maybe they'll get lucky, but I don't know.
Here's a totally out of left field prediction. So obviously, Green Bay is undergoing some front office changes.
Oh,
They're going to be bringing in a new GM. Mike McCarthy's been in Green Bay a very long time. John Dorsey, the Browns' new GM, came from Green Bay's front office. He was part of the staff that hired Mike McCarthy. If things don't go great in Green Bay next year and they decide they want new fresh blood, maybe Mike McCarthy goes to Cleveland?
Is that wishful thinking on your part?
I don't know. Okay. As of right now, there are 6 head coach openings. I think we all know the Oakland job is pretty much going to go to John Gruden.
Chucky's got that locked up.
We can get your guys' thoughts on that in a second. But out of the other 5 jobs, so Indianapolis, Arizona, Chicago, the New York Giants, and Detroit, what do you think is the most appealing spot if you're a head coach looking for a gig?
Lions.
Lions, really?
Yeah, Stafford. You got a good quarterback right off the bat. Most of the other teams, the Giants still have Eli Manning, but you have to admit he's probably at the end of his career. He's only got maybe a couple years left. But Matthew Stafford's still, to me, in the prime of his career. He's still got a few good years left. I think the Lions is the best job. The Colts, obviously, if Andrew Luck is healthy, and that's a big if, then that job becomes good. But I think the Lions, they did make the playoffs last. Did they make the playoffs last year? Or?
Yep.
Yeah, to me, I think Caldwell could have been retained easily, but I think the Lions is the most attractive of those jobs. To be honest with you, for because of Stafford.
I go with the Giants just because that ownership's commitment to, for one thing, they have the number 2 pick in the draft, I believe. That franchise isn't afraid to spend some money, and you got to remember, Giants had a lot of injuries this year. That team is 1 year removed from an 11-win season. They lost Beckham. They lost a bunch of their other wide receivers, and they had some injuries on defense too. They had some chaos too with some of the defensive players.
See, I think that's the
secondary
issue with that team.
And I think a new coach comes in, and that gets shaped up right away. Either you're with us or you're against us kind of mentality, and. I think for the Giants' job, just given their history, this is a team that they aren't going to be losing for long, and the front office is going to invest. They're going to, draft pretty well. Hopefully, they're going to make some free agent signings because they're not afraid to do that. And who knows with Eli Manning? Maybe it was a 1-year thing. He had a dog year back before the 11-5 season. So I think I don't think the book has been written.
He had a dog year in the 11-5 season too.
The book is, oh my God.
I think that he would be a capable starter. Look, we live in a league that Tyrod Taylor got in the playoffs. Come on.
True.
Joe Flacco almost led the Ravens to the playoffs.
Joe Flacco's won a Super Bowl.
Eli's won 2.
Yeah.
So
Eli. Look, in those 2 games, Eli Manning is the reason why the Giants won those Super Bowls. Is Eli because of that? So.
Are you sure it's not the defense that held Tom Brady to 20 points?
In the first game, yes. The one in 2007, yes. I'll give you that one. But Eli made some nice plays, though.
He did.
You got to give him a little credit there.
I think if we had a little more clarity on Andrew Luck, I think Indy would clearly be the team. But as you guys said, we don't know. So I think both the teams you guys mentioned are pretty solid choices. The other team that briefly brought up there was the Oakland Raiders, who are apparently going to be giving John Gruden their head coaching position.
20 years to the month.
This is crazy, right? Like, there's no way John Gruden is going to come in and invigorate the Raiders. Come on.
I don't know.
I mean,
He's an offensive coach.
he's got a
He's got
a
Derek
good quarterback.
Carr.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's got to fix
that-
the defense, really.
You know, he's got some, and that's the other thing. He brings in a good defensive coordinator. That defense doesn't look too bad either. Problem
Khalil
is,
Mack.
right? You know, you've got one of the best defensive players in the league on offense. You know, if Marshawn sticks around, which he probably will, you got Derek Carr, Murray Cooper, Crabtree. If they keep him.
Crabtree's going to be cut from what I'm hearing.
Crabtree's might be gone. Are we sure Derek Carr and Amari Cooper are good? Are we sure?
I hear Amari Cooper. Yeah, look, here's the thing with the Raiders. Okay, the only reason why they made this move is because they're a lame duck team in Oakland, and they got to sell tickets in Vegas. Okay, if they weren't moving, if this whole thing wasn't like in flux, Jack Del Rio most likely does not get fired because they just signed him to a contract extension last year. Okay, so I think Del Rio unfortunately is the scapegoat here for a situation where you got a team that's moving in a couple of years, 3 years, and you've got to do something to generate fan excitement, keep the fans in the seats in Oakland, and then of course generate excitement to sell tickets in Vegas. So I don't think this was made solely on coaching itself. This is more promotion and putting fannies in the seats and everything. So, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with hiring a named coach to sell tickets.
Who's won a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Well, here's my problem. Yes,
Denver.
he won a Super Bowl
But
with a team he inherited.
Right.
And since winning that Super Bowl, 0-2 in the playoffs, his record is under 500. And yeah, he's been out of the game for 10 years.
No, I think this could blow up on the Raiders. Absolutely.
I think
it should blow up on the Raiders.
When you see what the Rams have done with Sean McVay, like, why would you want to bring in? I would so much rather bring in a guy with fresh ideas, because ultimately winning is going to put fans' butts in the seats.
Well, you know something here.
The John Gruden thing will last a season, but if they go 5-11 again next year, and then they stink their first year in Las Vegas, people aren't going to care after that.
Well, I'll say this though, when you look at Gruden's record as the Raiders coach, it was pretty good. It was really good.
His team got screwed over.
I think you could say that since the Raiders' glory days of the '80s, if you go through the '90s and the 2000s, that Gruden's the best coach they've had since Tom Flores. Okay,
Not Hugh Jackson.
no, not Hugh Jackson.
Tom Cable?
Not Tom Cable.
Art Shell?
Not Art Shell. I mean, Gruden did a good job with the Raiders, and I think if he hadn't gotten in a what's the word I'm looking for? Tiff with Al Davis, he wouldn't have gone to the Buccaneers that year. So you wonder how the Raiders would have changed as a franchise if they hadn't gotten rid of Gruden and traded him. Remember, he was traded to the Buccaneers. And he wasn't fired. He was traded to the Buccaneers. The Raiders got draft picks. Okay, think about that. So I think the ingredients are there for Gruden to succeed. I think Gruden would not be coming back unless it was this type of situation where he knows he's got a good quarterback, and I think maybe he feels there's unfinished business in Oakland.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how many examples there are of kind of a coach taking off so much time and then coming back.
Dick Vermeil.
I was going to say that's one of the examples, and he came back and
15
obviously
years.
had very, very good success. Won the Super Bowl with the Rams. He built the Chiefs up for a few years. They were really good. But for every Dick Vermeil, there's Joe Gibbs. Comes back to the Redskins and
Yeah, but that's just the Redskins are unfortunately right now. They are I don't want to say cursed franchise, but
Dog team.
they're just and it starts with the ownership. Okay, it does.
but why is that different than the Raiders? Who, I mean, Mark Davis. Come on, what have the Davises done since in the past 30 years?
Well, I'm just saying that I think that for Joe Gibbs, he wasn't completely in it. His heart wasn't in it, so to speak. I don't say his heart wasn't in it. I mean, he did get the team to the playoffs, by the way. He did get the Redskins in the playoffs during his second tenure, okay? So it wasn't a complete disaster. I mean, you're judging him against when he won 3 Super Bowls in 10 years. I mean, the tenure wasn't that bad. But the problem was you had an older coach who basically his heart wasn't in it after a while, and he owned a NASCAR team. So he had other commitments.
He didn't have the drive.
You know?
But
Oh, man, I'll tell you. So I think Gruden could do well with the Raiders if he makes good hires for the defensive side of the ball. You know, because I think offensively they'll be fine. With Carr. So we'll see though.
So enough of these lame teams that are going nowhere this season.
I'll say.
We have some intriguing playoff matchups for Wild Card Weekend. Starting off Saturday, Titans at Chiefs. Without giving away your picks, save that for your Facebook Live video. But kind of your early feelings on this matchup.
You know, despite the Week 17 result, I think the Titans have been heading in the wrong direction. And, a lot of questions about Mariota at quarterback. You know, is he the guy? He's had a rough year statistically and, certainly hasn't been consistent on the field. And, the Titans, they have some good pieces there for sure on both sides of the ball. But this is a game they're going into Kansas City, playing at Arrowhead in the playoffs. Granted it is an Andy Reid coach team, so anything could happen. But
he has no problem winning in the wild card.
But with the Chiefs, I mean, they seem to have bounced back from the midseason slog that they went through. So I think this will be a tough one for the Titans on the road, especially the way they've been playing.
DeMarco Murray's out, by the way.
Yep,
that's right.
So
but they do have Derrick Henry.
They do, but
not a bad. No,
it's not a bad backup, but still, it's going to be a tough road, though.
I'm really excited for this Saturday night matchup. The defending NFC champions, the Atlanta Falcons, travel to the LA Coliseum to face the Rams, where apparently parking tickets are like absolutely ridiculous, over $100 to park. Chris, I mean, your thoughts? I think before were you saying that you kind of like the Falcons? Is that true?
We'll see. But well, come on, you're the one who said, "Well, you don't have to make your picks yet." I mean,
I'm not saying you have to give anything away.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by the Rams because this is a team that, again, nobody saw them making this type of a leap. Okay? So you figure they got to be playing pretty loose. That they feel like, hey, man, we weren't supposed to be here. Falcons, on the other hand, have got it looks like they've put the ghost of 28-3 behind them but by making the playoffs, but still, now it's tough. They got to go on the road. As you said, Matt Ryan did not have the type of season that he had the year before.
Only 20 touchdown passes.
So, there's some doubts about the Falcons, and you're wondering if some of those doubts are going to seep in, and we'll see. But then again, the Falcons have playoff experience, and the Rams don't. So is that going to come into play at some point? So I think that may be the best matchup of the weekend, possibly. It's an intriguing one because, like I said, the Rams, that offense, man, they can score some points. And like I said, it'll be fun to see if they can pull that one off.
Yeah, I mean that game, I think could be high scoring, like 40 to 30, type game. I mean, both of these teams, even though the Rams play fairly well defensively, they've given up some points this year against opponents. I think back to the Eagles game at the Coliseum. That was a high-scoring game. So I think this one will be similar. But I mean, for me with all these matchups, I just like the home teams and where they're positioned. And the Rams, have played well on both sides of the ball. The Falcons, they need some help to get in. If they lose and the Seahawks win, completely different story. So
Miami beat the Falcons. That's all you need to know.
I'll say.
So did the Bills.
So did the Bills, and so did the Bills. Yeah, that was a good win for Buffalo.
So, I mean the Falcons, to me, they're still a solid team, but they're certainly not as good as they were last year. And I don't know. I just don't see them making a deep run again this year.
Yeah, I think they still have a lot of this stink from last year. I mean, even if they don't they clearly, like you said, they're just not the same team. Matt Ryan didn't have a very good year. Julio Jones had one touchdown?
Yeah, they missed Kyle Shanahan. Period. You know, he was credited with a lot of the success on offense and was a big reason why that team, high scoring team in the league last year, made the Super Bowl and was in a position to win it. And you know, so that was kind of the knock on the Falcons going into this year, is that without him, what would the offense look like? And it didn't look good.
Yeah, they look fine for about 2 or 3 weeks to start the season, and then it's
yeah.
But yeah, I'll say I'm going to go with the Rams. We'll wait for your guys' picks later, but
No spoilers.
Sunday, starting with the NFC matchup, the Carolina Panthers are traveling to New Orleans to face the Saints.
Yeah.
Both teams, little disappointing showings week 17. Either you guys concerned about kind of what they did, because both teams lost.
Yeah, I think it was tough with with both of these teams just because of where they were positioned. They were locks to get in. It was more of a seeding thing. So you wonder, you know, how much they actually cared about where they finished. I mean, certainly if you're Carolina, you'd rather have that home game. You know, they obviously didn't deliver. New Orleans, same thing, but you know, it worked out in their favor that they end up with a home playoff game anyway. But I just like where New Orleans is at with you've got Ingram, Kamara, Breeze is playing okay. Defense has certainly improved. I think on paper they're a better team, and it's shown this year. They've beaten the Panthers twice already. So not to say that the Panthers can't come in and beat up on the Saints, but it's not going to be easy in the Superdome. So
Ditto. Don't need to regurgitate what he just said. Ditto.
Chris, you're a regular Chris Mortensen.
Thanks. I guess I'll take that as a compliment.
Hey, everybody likes Mort.
yeah,
Does that make Robert Adam Schefter then, or something, or what's
the young, good-looking one.
Schefter wears glasses now, so you got that part right.
Yeah.
There's your sound effect for the day.
Yeah, as I kind of said weeks leading up to this, I like the Panthers coming to the playoffs, but not if they had to play the Saints. And
Yeah.
here we are, and
That's a tough break.
Mm-hmm.
that offense hasn't looked great unless they were playing Green Bay. They lit up Green Bay, of course, but yeah, I don't know. It's too bad. I do think the Saints are going to move on here. But yeah, I mean, the matchup that all of Western New York has been waiting for, unless you're Chris, I guess. The Buffalo Bills are traveling
To
Jacksonville.
To lovely Jacksonville. Freezing Jacksonville.
to face the Blake Bortles-led Jaguars. I mean, okay, Robert, what's the best, I guess, avenue for the Bills to pull off, I think, what would be considered an upset by many?
They need to force turnovers. They need to make Blake Bortles the 2016 edition of Blake Bortles. They certainly need to pressure him more to force him to make bad decisions. But if they get a few interceptions, or fumble recoveries, if they can get that level of takeaways like they did in the aforementioned Atlanta game that they won on the road, I think they can pull off this upset. You know, the thing about the Jaguars,
Shocking the Bills fan feels that way.
you know, I think the important thing with the Jaguars is that 2-game losing streak coming in. Of course, they did have to travel to face the Jimmy G led 49ers, lost to them.
That's Jimmy GQ to you.
Yeah, and and then they of course lost to Tennessee last week. But they, their playoff seeding was set, so you can't really read too much into that. But the important thing here is Saint Doug. This is the Saint Doug game, okay? And I think he's going to want to show the Buffalo contingent that what they missed out on by letting him escape with his $4 million a few years ago.
Yeah, escape. He chose to leave.
Well,
And thank you very much.
He chose to leave because of the relationship he had with then general manager Doug Whaley, as reports indicate that they didn't like each other too much, and his mentality was like it's either him or me, and ownership was on board with Whaley, and so he said, "All right, I'll take my $4 million.
Yeah.
Peace out."
Yeah.
So yes, it was his decision, but it was his decision, and Saint Doug can pound salt.
Saint Doug, I like the way you refer to him like that. For me, I'll put it this way: if Shady McCoy is not 100% healthy, which I doubt he's going to be, I think the Bills are in trouble because then you're asking Tyrod Taylor to win the game for you, and I don't know how he does that with Jacksonville's defense. And and what Robert said about you want the Blake Bortles 2016. Well, they didn't have Leonard Fournette in 2016. They do now. So if I'm the Jags, I want to run the football and avoid putting the game in Blake Bortles' hands. And then if I'm the Jags defense, I want to put the ball in Tyrod Taylor's hands. So I think whatever quarterback has the best day is the team that wins that game. I know it's kind of like stating the obvious, but
Wow.
I can't see Tyrod Taylor rising above and carrying the Bills to a win. We'll see. It could happen. And the Bills' defense is going to, I'm sure, going to be pretty potent. Look at Robert smiling.
It's a lukewarm take, my friend. Lukewarm.
Lukewarm. I want them to lose. Come on, you know that.
Oh, of course.
I want Jacksonville, man. Tom Coughlin, Doug Marrone, Syracuse guys.
Tom Coughlin. Marone.
So we'll see what happens, but I just think that I think the Jaguars they got something to show, and I think Tom Coughlin, he's pulling the strings behind the scenes there. I'm telling you, man,
the Wizard of Oz.
He's gonna have an impact on this game. It won't be known, it won't be public, but I'm telling you, there's something going on behind the scenes that Coughlin's doing.
So you're gonna slip in the locker room and give Blake Bortles some steroids or something?
Gonna make more than steroids, man. But anyways, that's just my opinion. Humble opinion.
Just imagine, guys. In less than a week, we're going to be living in a world where either the Buffalo Bills have won a playoff game or Blake Bortles has won a playoff game.
It's true.
It's pretty scary that the Jaguars could actually win a playoff game.
Only in, I guess, technically 2018 now, but...
I mean, that's like Cleveland. I mean, it's like next year Cleveland going into the playoffs,
It really is.
Seriously, because, Jacksonville was Cleveland South when you really think about it.
A dog team.
Dog team, couldn't, they had to close off parts of the stadium to tarp them off because they couldn't sell tickets and had to take the tarps off now. And, of course, they're selling all those tickets to Bills fans, but,
Wait, are we talking about Jacksonville or Miami?
Yeah. There's no tarps in Miami, okay?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sick bird.
All right.
Poor guy. It's going to be a rough...
Hey,
It's all right, Chris. You and I both got to take our lumps for the next few
something?
months.
Here's the thing. I can handle it, okay? Because, first of all, it is the first time in 17 years, number one. Number two, they still haven't won a Super Bowl, okay? They still have not won one.
Have the Dolphins won one in your lifetime?
Yeah, they have. They've won a couple in my lifetime, okay?
Sure.
We got 2 rings. And third, the all-time series, Miami versus Buffalo. Miami 60 wins, Buffalo 46, okay? We still hold the edge in the all-time series. By Buffalo would have to sweep Miami 7 years in a row to get even, okay?
Be careful what you wish for.
Nah, I ain't going to owe you that many hot chocolates, I'll tell you that. Because we swept you guys last year, don't forget that.
Yeah, we swept you guys the year before.
Yeah,
and this year.
Yeah, so there we go. So I'm just saying, enjoy it, Robert. You've earned it. All the Bills fans.
I didn't earn anything. I just sat on the couch and watched the game for 3 hours.
You're suffering over the years, like 2004 and, the Music City Miracle and, all those things and the 4 Super Bowl losses in the 90s and, But irregardless, enjoy it. You've earned it. Have fun on Sunday. It'll be fun watching the game with you.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot of fun.
You'll have some real chicken wings on your plate.
I might not get wings. You never know.
Just Robert, I'm just curious. So, how prepared are you? Because 17 years worth of just kind of December doesn't really matter. You guys are done. It's kind of a different level of sadness than losing in the playoffs. Are you prepared for the exponentially higher amount of sadness that is inevitably going to come to you
Oh yeah.
at some point in the next couple weeks.
I'd be more surprised if they won. I think the Jaguars will win, should win, whatever. But I'm more prepared for that to happen than, if the Bills win, I'd be surprised, elated. But I don't think they will. I'll be rooting for them to win, of course. But
There's a part of me that actually would like to see them win, because then they go to New England and get stomped the next week by Brady and Gronkowski.
I was just going to say, this road doesn't end well for the Bills either way.
That's the thing. It's like it'd almost be like the Bills win a playoff game. The fans even get more excited. They're talking Super Bowl again. They're just it's out of control in Western New York. Okay,
talking Super Bowl, when you have to go through New England?
but that's what I mean.
There's not a Bills fan drunk enough that would say that.
If the Bills win a playoff game, you try telling me if the Bills win on Sunday, that because looking at the reaction of the fan base from just making the playoffs, if they actually win a playoff game, what's the excitement level going to be? Even though it's oh man, we're playing New England.
Well, you have to put it in context. I saw Barstool put out this tweet about, the Bills players celebrate like they won the Super Bowl. This franchise and these players get it. They haven't made it in 17 years to the playoffs. Of course they're excited.
But if I'm a Bills fan and they do beat Jacksonville, wouldn't you be saying like, something? We play New England twice every year. And yeah, they beat us, but we know them better than any other team we're going to play in the playoffs. Maybe, you never know what can happen. That's the thing. You never know. Maybe Tom Brady gets knocked out on the first play. I'm not saying that it will happen or I want it to happen, but it could happen.
That would be my coaching strategy.
So, I mean, what's to say? You never know. But
Harding-gate.
Yeah.
You heard it here first. Robert Harding putting money on the line for somebody to knock out Brady.
Crowbar to Tom Brady.
Give Brady the old Tanya Harding treatment.
There you go.
Nancy
One.
and Tanya.
Well, it's time to wrap up a podcast when figure skating gets brought up. So
Killed it.
we'll end there, mercifully. Next week we'll be either talking about a pretty incredible AFC East matchup or where the Bills will be picking in the draft.
We know it'll be in the 20s.
Yeah. Well, that's the great thing about
Well, they got two picks, right?
They got the Chiefs pick. So they'll be picking.
They'll be in the 20s. Yeah, it could literally be back-to-back.
Could be
So
back-to-back.
you're hoping for a Titans win, I assume.
That'd be great. Bills lost, Titans win.
Yeah, the road just gets a little easier for New England
The
that way.
draft gets a little better. So,
Well, remember, it's not where you pick, it's who you pick.
well, for most teams, like I can't say we picked Deion Jordan or anything.
Or Sammy Watkins.
Oh come on, Sammy Watkins is actually
traded
productive player in the league.
for another team.
Deion Jordan has barely sniffed the NFL
Yeah,
field.
and he played with the Seahawks. And he didn't do. He had one sack.
Hey, be careful. He had 3 or 4 sacks in
I
3 or 4 games.
I wouldn't get your hopes up on that. Let's wrap it up.
These last few minutes have went off the rails.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. For Robert Harding and Chris Shearer, this is Justin Ritzel. This has been another edition of the Citizen NFL Podcast. We'll catch you for the divisional round next week.